Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make a nursing bra from an old t-shirt or pair of pyjamas. So I've got these two pyjama tops that I actually got second-hand many years ago, given to me. They've always been too short, so I don't really wear them because they don't cover my belly and I don't want to be cold in my pyjamas. So I decided that I'm going to use these to make another one of my maternity nursing bras. So that's the fabric that I'm going to be harvesting and using. So I thought I'd talk quickly about the pattern that I've drafted for this. So the first thing you need to do is measure where you want the belly band to sit under your bust. So if I position the pattern piece so that you can see it, the width across here needs to be half the measurement of that belly band plus ½ an inch for seam allowance. So measure with a tape measure under your bust where you want the band to sit, where the elastic will be, and take that measurement, divide it in two, and then add ½ an inch to that for your seam allowance. So that's how wide you want your pattern piece to be across the bottom. Then you want to measure up from where you want your elastic to sit to where you want the bottom of your armholes to sit under your arm, and that's how long this measurement is going to be. You then want to measure how far apart you want your shoulder straps to be. So I actually did this by placing an existing crop top that I have onto the pattern and roughly marking with these little marks where the straps lay, and they became the centre of my strap points. I then folded the pattern piece in half and I drew the curve of the back line and cut that out, and then I worked out the arch. I just eyeballed this from where I wanted, just off the centre of this, where I wanted my strap to finish to where I wanted my underarm to finish, and I eyeballed a curve. So you want this curve to be quite deep. This is the back piece, so this is where your shoulder's going to sit, and you want your shoulder to have full movement, and you want this arm's eye to be large enough. One of the problems with making anything with armholes is that you often underestimate how large the arm's eye needs to be. So make sure that you give yourself a nice deep curve on the back piece for your armhole. So once you've worked out the rough pattern of your back piece, you're then going to work out the front piece. So all I did was I placed this on a piece of paper and I drew where my shoulder straps started and finished, and then where my underarm finished. I actually drew the line from my back piece onto my new piece of paper, as you can see here, but I wanted this one to be a shallower curve because obviously your breast is here and that curves outwards towards the front, so you don't want to be sort of hanging out of the cup on this side near your armpit. So you want a little bit of extra coverage just to compensate for that curve. So I made this slightly shallower, as you can see here, drafted that on and cut that shape, and I then made a diagonal from here to a point on the front. So when I lay this pattern piece across the other one, it wants to go more than halfway across. So my halfway point is here, and I gave myself an extra couple of inches for the wraparound to overlap. So it's going to overlap by probably about 4, maybe 5 inches across the bottom. So then I drew a semi-straight diagonal line from the shoulder to that point where I wanted the crossover to end, and this is my second pattern piece. So in terms of cutting out, what we're going to do is we're going to be lining the bra, and that's going to handle all of our hems as well. So we're going to cut out 2 back pieces and 4 front pieces, 2 left and 2 right. So you will need to flip the pattern piece for cutting the second pair of your front pieces. We will also need a belly band to go across the bottom. So measure the width of your elastic and add an extra 1/2 inch for seam allowance, and double that width because it's going to wrap around the elastic and then hem onto the thing. So you take the width of your elastic, times that by 2 and add 1/2 inch, and that's how deep your belly band needs to be, and it needs to be the same as double the width of the bottom of your pattern piece. So that measurement that you took around under your bust line, it wants to be that plus 1/2 inch for seam allowance. So that's the length of that strip and the width of that strip. You then also want 2 strips that you're going to form straps for your shoulder straps to go the rest of the way over your shoulder. So these are the adjustable straps. So these don't need to be very thick. So I measured about 2 inches wide, and I just made long strips of the fabric by combining multiple 2-inch wide strips together to form longer strips where I needed to for both the belly band and for the shoulder straps, to get the desired size of fabric length strips for those 2 parts. So that's basically using up offcuts. If you're not making this from a t-shirt, if you're making this just from, you know, say 1 metre or so of a jersey knit fabric, then obviously you'll be able to cut them out in a continuous piece. But because I'm piecing this together from existing garments, I do need to do some piecing work at times. So those straps are going to be turned inside out and made into essentially cords, top stitched on both sides to make them flat again, and then they're going to be added they're going to be sewn in on the back piece, so they're permanently fixed, and then they're going to be finished nicely on the front so that they can have poppers attached, which will popper on to the front piece. So those are all the pieces that we're going to be cutting out of our fabric. So the first thing we're going to do is to harvest the fabric from our t-shirts, our pyjamas. So what I'm going to do for this is, the first thing I'm going to do is turn the garments inside out. I'm going to cut off any finished hems, and then I'm going to pinch and cut along any finished seams on the inside of the garment, and separate out the different panels of fabric that make up these garments. So I've got a front and a back piece on both of these t-shirts, and I've got sleeves. These ones are fully integrated. As you can see, there's no seam into the sleeve, and these ones have actually got separated sleeves with the seam. So I'll just cut the sleeves off this one completely and discard them, but I can actually use the fabric from this because it's in one continuous sweep. So depending on your garment, you'll cut it slightly differently, cutting out the neck hems and things as well, and get yourself some flat pieces of jersey knit ready to work out how you're going to place and cut your pattern pieces. So now I've got my flat pieces of jersey fabric, I'm going to lay out my pattern pieces and work out how to get the most use out of each of the panels. So I'm I want this butterfly fabric to be on the outside. I'm not too worried about whether the lining is patterned or not, so I'm going to make sure that I get a front piece and a left and a right, a back piece, sorry, and a left and a right front piece at least out of the butterfly fabric, and the rest can be from whichever fabric is left over. So I'm going to simply cut around these shapes. So I'm not going to worry too much about getting them absolutely perfect. So now I've got my pattern pieces cut out. So I've got a left and a right of the top part and a left and a right of the lining. I've got a back part in the butterfly and a back part in the lining. And then I've got a strip that is, in my case, 2 inches wide. This is 3/4 of an inch, so it would be 1.5 inches doubled up and then 1/2 inch for seam allowance. So I've got a 2-inch strip, which is just wider than the base of the back part. And then I've got 2 10-inch strips for my straps. And then I've got a piece of elastic. So this came from the waistband of a pair of pyjamas. So I went with the unpicker, the seam ripper, and took all of the serged on jersey off it. And this piece is incredibly stretchy, very, very soft elastic. So I put it around my underbust area and it fits perfectly, so very comfortably. So that is the length of elastic that I've gone for. So these are all my pieces, and we're now going to start construction. So I've taken my outer back piece and my outer left and right front pieces, and I've laid them right sides together, and then I have pinned along the side seams on both sides, and I'm going to do a line of straight stitching with a 1/4 inch seam down both sides, and I'm going to do the same thing for the outer layer and for the lining layer. Next I'm going to take my 2 10-inch strips, and I'm going to make these into straps by folding them in half, and I'm going to sew along one edge and then down the long edge, leaving the other end open for turning out. I'm going to take a knitting needle and turn my loops inside out. So I pinch them and rotate them sideways and use that sewn up end to push that down inside the tube. I then turn my knitting needle around and use the blunt end to push that through and work it so that I can turn my cord inside out. I then want to try and work out my corners at the far end. And now to make this flat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a line of top stitches just in from the edge down both sides of my of my strap. I'm just going to leave the other end open because this is going to become enclosed. Okay, so now I've sewn together the side seams, attaching my left and right and back outer layer. I've got my 2 straps, so I'm going to place them in the centre of the back shoulder seams, facing down towards the bottom of the back piece. And I'm going to open up my lining layer, and I'm going to place this on top, right sides together, over my other pieces, lining up all of the points. So once you've got your pieces laid out, you're going to pin all along the top of all of the pieces, leaving the straight bottom edge open. And now we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam with a straight stitch all the way around this top line. We're going to make sure that we reverse back and forward several times over the back shoulder straps to make sure that they're fastened securely. So one thing I should have mentioned earlier is that I actually started the line of stitching probably 3/4 of an inch away from the point of these parts, because I want this bottom piece open in order to do the next step. So start your line of stitching there. So now that I've done my seam on here, we're going to turn this right side out so we can pull on the shoulder straps, and then pull the other straps the right way out, where the straps will attach on the front, making sure you get the corners out nicely. So one thing that I like to do on these is to clip the corners and remove that bulk so that they turn out nicely. I'm going to take a little bit off the end there as well, and I'll do the same on this one. That just means it lies nice and flat when you have finished off inside out. So we turn that back inside out. That then is nice and flat. So now we have nice finished edges on all of the top edges, and our shoulder straps are attached to the back of our bra. So if we turn it so that the lining layer is facing up, we can fold in our sides. And you'll see how it's coming together. So it overlaps at the front here. So first thing we want to do is to attach some clips along the edge here between the 2 points of our front panels, attaching these front layers together. So we don't want to attach them to the back layers, so we want to separate the back part from these front parts, and we want to clip those areas into place. So that overlap is in the correct place and our side seams are nice and flat, so that we know that this is all lined up nicely and going to be the right circumference around the belly band. So now you can see we've got around the belly band area there. What we're going to do now is we're going to take our belly band strip and right sides together we want to pin this in place. So before we do that, what I want to do is to sew this to be the right size. So I'm going to lay this back out flat. Get my side seams nice and flat. And then make sure that I get the right width exactly. I'm then going to have this right sides together so that any of the joins and things are on the outside, and I'm going to lay that so that the seam matches exactly on the side there, exactly on the side here. I'm going to redo that slightly so that we get rid of that join, as that's obviously not necessary. So I'm going to cut about a 1/4 inch out from this side here, which is going to be our seam allowance, and I'm going to pin these two ends together, and then I'm going to run a 1/4 inch seam with a straight line of stitching down here to get my belly band to the right diameter. So I've just quickly done that off camera. So now we want to have this right sides together, so it's still going to be inside out, and we're going to attach this around the outside of our bra. Stretch that into place. So the first thing I'm going to do is to incorporate this belly band in as well with these clips that I've already got on the front here. So you can use clips or pins, whichever you've got. I'm just going to line up the belly band edge with the edge of our front panel pieces. So now that's attached the belly band as well, and then we're going to go around and we're going to do the same thing, clipping the belly band to the outside ring all the way around. So now we've got the belly band all clipped on, and what we're going to do is we're going to run a 1/4 inch seam, but we're going to use a 3-step zigzag stitch because this belly band area is going to need to go on over your body, so it still needs to have stretch in it. So most machines will have a 3-step zigzag stitch. I'm going to show you what that is in a minute. If you don't, you can use a straight zigzag stitch, a normal zigzag stitch for this this seam here. So I'll show you what a 3-step zigzag stitch looks like now. So on my machine you can see all the different stitches that I have available. This one is a normal zigzag stitch, so it's got one stitch going between point A and point B left to right. And this is a 3-step zigzag stitch, so it's a zigzag, but it has 3 little stitches between point A and B left to right, and 3 little stitches between point B and point A going right to left. So this is the 3-step zigzag stitch that I'm going to use for this seam. If you don't have one of these available on your sewing machine, you can just use a standard zigzag stitch. So now I've attached the belly band using the 3-step zigzag stitch, and now I'm going to turn this towards the inside of the bralette, and I'm going to turn this down, join it to where the zigzag stitch so that it just covers the zigzag stitch, and I'm going to hand stitch this down all the way around in the same fashion, and I'm going to leave a 2-inch opening, which is where I'm going to insert my elastic in the next step. So I'm going to go around now and I'm going to hand turn this belly band down and hand stitch it just along the line of the top of the zigzag to the inside lining layer. Okay, so I've now hand stitched that all the way around, just leaving a couple of inches opening here where I'm going to feed my elastic through. So I've got my elastic here, and I'm just going to take a safety pin and attach that to the end, which I'm going to use to feed it all the way through my channel that I've sewn here. Okay, so I made sure that the elastic isn't twisted anywhere in the channel and that it's fed through evenly. I've temporarily connected the two ends of the elastic together with the safety pin, and I'm now going to just sew these together using the sewing machine. So now that's fastened tightly together. I just continue to use the 3-step zigzag stitch to do that, so there's lots of stitches in there. And I'm going to pull that into the channel, and then I'm going to finish this off by hand stitching the band into place and closing up that bit of the channel here that's left open. So I'm going to hand stitch that, and then we're ready to move on to the poppers. Okay, so now we've got our almost finished nursing bra. All we're going to do now is we're going to take the shoulder straps and the top of the front flaps, and we're going to attach poppers so that they can fasten here. So what I'm actually going to do is attach 3 female poppers onto the shoulder strap and 1 male popper onto the top of the fold down flap, the cup of the nursing bra, so on this top point here. So I've got a pair of popper pliers, I've got an awl, and I've got my male and female poppers and my popper backs. So you could use hooks and eyes, you could use sew-on poppers, or you could use ring poppers, or otherwise known as press studs, which are essentially metal versions of these. I've actually got a whole load of plastic poppers in my sewing stash already from years ago and all this kit, so I'm going to use the plastic ones. But if you're wanting to do this fully zero waste and you don't already own poppers, then metal press studs or sew-on metal poppers are a good option. So I'm going to take a popper back and a female popper front, and I'm going to take my awl and I'm going to put a hole through the centre of my shoulder strap. I'm going to put my popper back with the spike going through the hole, so that the popper back's going to sit on the outside. I'm going to take my female end and put that in place, and I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to squeeze those together, and then my first popper is in place. So I'm going to do 3 females on each of the straps so that we've got a bit of adjustable size in the shoulder straps. And I'm going to take a popper back and a male popper, and I'm going to attach these through the top of the cup flap. So I'm going to have it so that the presser back is against the skin and the male part of the popper is facing outwards. Put those in place and squeeze those together, and then my shoulder strap will clip to the front of the bra cup. So I'm just going to add the same on the other side, and I'm going to add 3 poppers with the female parts onto the shoulder strap, so I've got some adjustability. So here's our completed nursing bra. We've got the poppers that attach to the front flaps at the end of either of the shoulder straps, and these simply pop are undone, and then the flap can fold down so that you've got access to either side for feeding. So all of the edges are completely hemmed, there are no raw edges. We've got the hand sewn final edge on the bottom of the underbust band, and then we've got the lining layer on the inside, which if we turn it inside out you can see the lining layer, and that's all attached all the way around with nice soft edges. So I haven't bothered to top stitch these because I want these to be nice and soft, these seams. We've got a nice sort of full back panel here, and we've got the adjustable height in the shoulder straps, so if we want to make them tighter or looser, we've got a bit of wiggle room there as well. So that's a finished maternity nursing bra. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, it really does help, and subscribe if you'd like to see more how-to videos. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye!